So yeah, what makes a game an RPG, Montrell? Because you were talking to somebody on Twitter and they said that Sekiro is an RPG. And I didn't see their tweet, but I saw your reply to their tweet, and it was, referencing that. And I said, Sekiro is not an RPG. It is an action game that has skill trees. There's a difference, and that is, I will stand by that till the end of time. Sekiro is not an RPG. It's not even really close. I can explain my reasoning why, but I want to hear what you have to say first. How do you feel about my statement there?
I agree with your statement. I actually that was what my tweet was about. I said that Sekiro and even Bloodborne, um, they used the Dark Souls formula, but they
Mm-hmm.
perfected it because I think they finally realized that the RPG mechanics were holding them back. Um,
Yeah.
and they
Which Sekiro is to be frank, Sekiro is a testament to that being true
yeah,
because that game is perfect.
yeah, I think
It's a perfect
it's the
game.
perfect Dark Souls formula of what they've been building up for. Like if
Yep.
if Bloodborne was like 95%, and then like Sekiro is that full 5% they needed for the 100%. As far as
Hmm.
like perfecting their Dark Souls formula, and
Yep.
what they can do. Because if you played the Dark Souls game, even the Kingsfield and the Shadow of the I think it's called Shadow of the Abyss.
Hmm.
Um, these games have kind of been like building upon each other, like paying homage to each other and everything of that nature.
Yeah.
But I would say start with Demon Souls. So I'll start off with that. That's what a lot of people are familiar with and everything of that nature. Demon Souls started this
Hmm.
formula, and Dark Souls kind of perfected that formula took what Demon Souls had and kind of expanded upon it, making a little bit bigger open world experience. Not
Hmm.
open, but like open linear, I'll say. Uh,
Hmm.
and then you had Bloodborne, who took what Dark Souls did and then was like, "Hey, what if we just made everything fucking fast?"
Yeah.
And then you got Sekiro was like, fuck all that RPG shit. Let's just make a pure action game with
Hmm.
one single character. We follow that narrative of the character and we build this world around this character, for
Hmm.
him to fight and everything of that nature. And they did it. And it's Dark Souls and Demon Souls, in my honest opinion, I was thinking about it more, are barely RPGs. They're barely what we would traditionally call an
Hmm.
RPG.
Yeah.
Um, because you can cheese that game without. You can go pure stat base. You can do like a naked run and use action game mechanics and beat that game. It has been
Yeah.
done. Like you don't have to level up your character at all.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I think the only other game like that, which I really don't call it a RPG as well, is Kingdom Hearts. I've seen people do level 1 Kingdom Heart runs all the time.
Hmm.
That's like a thing where they actually put it in the game. You
Yeah.
can not do it.
Hmm.
So when a game does that, in my opinion, that's letting me know that they know that this is an action game. That's what they're
Yeah.
letting me know.
And the RPG mechanics aren't important.
Exactly. Now,
Because if you can't beat the game at level 1 without pumping stats into anything, upgrading your gear at all, I mean, is the RPG mechanics really that important? Um, it's a fair point.
yeah, and I think I couldn't do that. I couldn't be level 1 in Final Fantasy, like the 7 remake, right? I couldn't be level 1 in that game
Right.
because that game
There's no way.
scales. And if I'm still level 1, I would.
And the action combat is not tight enough for
Exactly.
that. You know.
So that's an RPG. And I understand what people are saying, like, oh, well, you're playing the role of a character. And it's like, yeah, but with that title, anything can be an RPG.
Yeah, I don't like the name role playing game because yes, any game you play, you are playing a role of somebody, whoever it is. And I vacillate a lot on this. I am actually really wishy-washy on this topic because it's really subjective, first of all. But second of all, to me it's like I have a strict view of what I believe an RPG is, but you're like convincing me that I'm wrong at the same time. Like you just convinced me because I was going to say Demon Souls and Dark Souls, they are RPGs because you can outscale enemies and you can customize your character and it's very stat based. But then you're right though. You can play the game and like not ever get hit if you're good enough, and that kind of means it's more of an action game than an RPG. It has RPG mechanics, but it's like I don't know. So it's like then you get into things like Mass Effect, right? Mass Effect 2, I don't consider that game an RPG. You know, um, like there's nothing in that game that is beyond the minute little skill trees that you have that makes that game an RPG. It is a narrative driven shooter. And like Mass Effect 1, that's more of an
That's more of an
RPG.
RPG. Yeah.
There's really deeper skill trees there, and there's equipment and character. Like there's a lot more character customization you can do in that game. So that's that's key element number one to me is like statistical character customization. And I know Demon Souls has this, and Dark Souls also has this as well. So this is some of these games are going to like overlap into these segments, but to me, like it needs to be meaningful stat customization. So Demon Souls and Dark Souls now fall out of this
Well,
because it's not necessarily meaningful in those games.
you
If you can beat it without ever putting a stat point in,
you can, but your stats do matter as far as damage. Like you would be doing
Mhm.
like no damage to people if that makes any
Right.
sense, right?
True. True.
I mean, and those are like fucking crazy people. So
Which is why I would consider them
now
RPGs because most players are going to play them like an
and
RPG.
that's what I was going to get to, right? I think
Yeah.
if you wanted to say the argument that Demon Souls and Dark Souls are RPGs, I wouldn't argue with you because I feel like they are
Hmm.
RPGs as well. But I can also see someone making an argument saying, "Hey, these are not RPGs, and here's the reasons why."
They're action games
Yeah, they're
first, right?
action games first. Um, but you do those stats do matter. Whereas with like Sekiro, I can play the entire game without putting in stats. If my parry is really fucking good, my dodging is good. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I can just play the game.
I don't even think it's that though that matters to me. It's the fact that there's no customization. You literally just gain power. It's not
Yeah.
like you're not doing. There's nothing meaningful beside behind the decision to use the fucking soul beads. You know, like it's literally you get soul beads, you use soul beads, you get more health. Like that's not a meaningful RPG decision. Like you're not
Well,
customizing your character in any way. Like
well,
it's just a thing that's part of the game.
yeah, well, this person said he was replying to me when I said I'll just read y'all the tweet. The Souls formula is
Hmm.
perfected in Sekiro and Bloodborne. Both games nerf the RPG aspects, and I put quotations around RPG, uh, and basically for action game, and they become top tier
Hmm.
games. Demon Souls and Dark Souls aren't exactly bad RPGs, but decent action games. I said aren't yeah, they aren't exactly bad RPGs, but they are in a sense if you want to go down the traditional what an RPG is.
Hmm.
Um, but they're decent action games. The RPG mechanics aren't that balanced, in my opinion, in both of those games. Then he replied
Yeah.
and said they are all RPGs. They immerse you in the world and use a stat based leveling system. That part I
But
didn't.
see, that's not true of Sekiro.
Yeah,
That's not true of Sekiro. There's no leveling system in that game. Like the leveling system is like you literally don't have a character level. Like you have statistics, health and damage, but they're not you don't level them. You get items that enable you to make them higher. Like that is not an RPG. That's not the way that's where the strictest of my view of RPGs is like technically I guess you're leveling up, but it's like how loose are you going to get with that, I mean, at that point Call of Duty has it's an RPG, like cuz you get better fucking guns that get more powerful in the single player in those games, it's like so
and then DJ said under your reply, when you said Sekiro is
Mhm.
not an RPG, the term RPG is thrown around way too much, blah, 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 blah. He replied to that and said RPGs are called role playing games. You can play the role if it's predefined. It's basically a PG or a playing game. I think he was just joking. Um,
Yeah, he was.
but yeah, I mean, I do think the term RPG gets thrown around a lot. I also think we use RPGs for unnecessary padding. Like I would
Yeah,
say,
to make a game sound more appealing.
yeah, like
And marketers do this too, by the
oh
way.
yeah,
like video game companies.
Because like I was thinking about God of War and the numbers and everything, right? They show you and shit, and it's like,
Mhm.
I guess,
It's borderline.
yeah,
Like I consider that one real borderline because to me, I actually think a lot of the equipment in that game and the statistics and stuff in that game are really arbitrary. I think they could just take it out.
yeah.
And it wouldn't even matter. Like the game wouldn't be better or worse, you know. I really think that is like the one element to God of War, that the 2018 game, that I think is like not even, it's not exciting. It's not really a necessary part of the game. And I mean, obviously, you do need it because of the way they designed the game, but you could create the same result with a Sekiro style system,
Yeah.
you know, where it's literally you power up your weapons with an item that you turn into a something, you know, a vendor or something, and you power up your health by turning in items, which they already have that in the game with the apples, you know, that you find. So it's like, you know, I don't really think the statistics are that valuable in that game,
Well, because you
and
do
I
have
think the
levels
game,
too, right? In God of War, right?
you do have
It's like
levels.
equipment levels,
You're right.
right? Yeah, so your equipment level.
Well, no, there's a character level too.
Okay.
I think you gain a little bit of health, and then you get a skill point every level up. But there's two games I want to bring up here. In my argument of the way the RPG has been overused. The term RPG has been overused to the point where it is like unrecognizable to me, like what people think an RPG is. Because the first one I'm going to bring up is Diablo 3. So I do not consider Diablo 3 an RPG.
Interesting.
The way that the way that game works, there is nothing about it where you make meaningful character decisions in terms of statistics beyond your gear. That's the only decision you make, and that decision is mostly made for you based on what drops. So it is a loot driven action game where you get more powerful based on the loot you find.
Okay.
You don't The only decisions you make in that game are gems and like kind of customizing your gear in the crafting system, the systems they have in the game. But for the most part, it's just an action game, and your character abilities, you don't pick your abilities. Like when you level up, you don't get to pick what ability you learn. The game gives you a predetermined ability at every specific level that you gain, and you have no choice in the matter. The only choice you have is which abilities you use on your action bar, but that doesn't make it an RPG to me, you know. So I think I really think that calling Diablo 3 an RPG is like such a it's
It's a simpler.
it's
It's
you're
very
getting real loose with
simplified.
the terminology. It is extremely simplified. Yes. Cuz you don't customize your character statistics. Like you don't this isn't like Diablo 2 where you gain a level, you get a skill point and a stat point, and you're making like choices. There aren't skill trees where you're like choosing what build you want to do with the character. You create your build around the gear you find, you know, and that's the game, you know. Um
You remember this one game for the
mhm.
N64 called Gauntlet? It was
mm,
like a top. It was like an almost isometric beat 'em up game.
Vaguely. Yeah, vaguely.
That's kind of
I
what.
mean, I know Gauntlet, the old one,
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah.
kind of like what Diablo 3 reminded me of.
Mhm.
Because you're
It's a
right.
good
Like
call.
you didn't really have to do anything besides get loot. It was like
Yeah.
almost like
You get loot, you put loot on, and like you don't have to think about anything in that game. You know, you can play it without even like thinking about customizing your gear, and you could get through it perfectly
yeah.
fine. You know, so and the second game that I want to bring up is Horizon Zero Dawn, which came out in 2017,
So they call
and
that an
that is
RPG.
plenty of people call
Oh,
that
I
game an
did say that
RPG.
earlier
And
today too.
that is an extremely loose use of the word RPG, in my opinion, because the game has gear. Yes, it has skill trees, and it has numbers that flash up on the screen when you fucking shoot at things. But this is what I fucking can't stand this part of gaming where like if something has damage numbers or you're like playing a shooter where it shows you damage numbers like Borderlands or something, it's like, oh, it's an RPG. It's like, no, dude, just because damage numbers, every game you play has damage numbers. Some of them show them to you and some of them don't. You know, you play Sekiro, you don't see damage numbers when you hit somebody, but you see a health bar go down. Guess what? Internally in the game, there's a damage, like there's a health number that the character you're fighting against has, and your weapon does a certain amount of damage to them when you swing it at them and hit them. That it's just not shown to you. Like they don't tell you, oh, you did 6 damage and they have 10 health. Like they don't do that in Sekiro, but every game has the system. So when a game decides to show you those numbers, that doesn't make it an RPG at all. Like like it doesn't matter what game you play. That's true, unless it's like a puzzle game or something. Any game where you have combat, where you're fighting people and they have health bars, there's numbers in the back end. Calculating things and dice rolls going on and stuff like that. So that doesn't mean it's an RPG. And Horizon's like the most egregious example of this because the game is like there's nothing meaningful about any aspect of the equipment, the skill trees, any of that stuff. Leveling your character, like it's the most useless shit imaginable in that game. It's so mindless, boring, poorly implemented in my opinion. This is something Horizon 2 like vastly needs to improve if they want to continue down this track, in my opinion. Because like it like the skill trees suck in that game. Like none of the choices really are meaningful and matter. Like it doesn't matter because you can get every single skill in every tree by the end of the game. When you max Aloy's character level, you have enough skill points to max every skill tree. So that's not that in and of itself is bad skill tree design. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not an RPG though.
It's a
But
bad
skill again,
RPG.
skill but skill trees are another one that people fall for. You having skill trees in your game like World of Warcraft doesn't mean your game is an RPG. Spider-Man has skill trees. That doesn't mean it's an RPG. Like, is anybody calling Spider-Man an RPG? Fuck no. Like so I think these things get conflated together and people like think that they mean RPG, but like to me, I don't know. I have a stricter view on this. Like I said, I think of more like D&D based games.
That's
That
my
is an
that's
RPG.
my
That's where it starts for
yeah,
me.
that's my criteria for like what an
Yeah.
RPG is. Like I'm
Yeah.
putting stats into certain builds. Like Elder
Hmm.
Scrolls, as much as I hate that game, it's still an RPG, right? Like
Yeah.
Fallout, well, not Fallout 4, but like Fallout from New Vegas
Three,
in 3, all
two,
that.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are as much as people say they hate Fallout 3 in New Vegas, your stats do matter in that game.
They're
Yeah,
RPGs.
they're
Right.
RPGs.
Yeah.
The thing I hate about RPG is the term RPG because people are like, oh, well,
Yes.
you're playing the role of a character, so it's an RPG, Montrell. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. That's
Yeah.
not an RPG. You know, it's not an RPG.
It's a genre, okay? Like we call I'm trying to think. There's a genre that's like really poorly named, unfortunately, and it's like
Action adventure.
I'm trying to no, maybe it was it Metroidvania, maybe, where it's like it doesn't even necessarily explain what the game is. It's just like that's just what we call it
Oh yeah, like yeah,
now.
we did say that like the Metroidvania style of stuff and
Yeah,
everything like
right,
that.
right. So it's like RPG means
Like,
something.
is
Okay,
Castlevania
I get.
RPG? Because you put stats up in one of the Castlevanias, I believe you actually start leveling up and
Yeah,
stuff.
which one are you talking about? Because Castlevania 1, the one on the NES, no, that's not an
Yeah.
RPG. But Symphony of the Night, yeah, there's like character building in that game.
Okay.
Like you have equipment and stuff that you put on, and yeah, you build Alucard, like you know. Now I haven't played the game, so I don't know exactly how it works. So maybe I might be talking a little out of my ass here, but
Okay.
my impression of the game and my understanding of it, it is sort of yeah.
Okay.
Um, it depends on which one you're talking about though. Like yeah, the one in the NES, that's an action game. Like it's just a platformer, like a 2D action platformer, like Mega Man or something. You know. So I don't know. This is like it's a deep topic. Obviously, this means different things to mean different people. I just hate the fact that like it is role playing game. That's the literal term we're talking about because that is so vague. It could apply to any game. It's like you could apply that term to any game and it would be true.
Well,
In
people
like a
do.
literal what the words
Uh,
mean.
Yeah, people do
Um,
that. I remember I got into a debate with somebody, and they're
mhm.
like, "Well, by your logic, fucking NBA 2K is an RPG," and I'm like, and we were talking about a certain game. Maybe it was fucking Horizon,
It's closer than
and I was
this
like,
is the funny
and I'm
part
like, it's
is
more of
that
a game
yeah
RPG than fucking some RPGs that we do play. It's more of an
yes
RPG to me
it
than
is.
Kingdom Hearts. It is.
Madden's like that too. Madden's like that too. Those sports games, they are RPGs. Like they have those mechanics in them, you know?
Yeah.
Um, they don't have like the equipment side of it necessarily. But in terms of like stats, you customize your player's stats in Madden, you know, when you're training them. You decide where you want them to be stronger or weaker, you
Yeah.
know? And that element of it is one of the most important aspects to an RPG to me, you know, is that customization,
So would you
you know?
consider if they came out and said NBA 2K or Madden RPG?
Like if they started marketing it that
Like
way.
I don't think they will market it that way, but in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
eyes, those are RPG games. Like
Yeah.
they're just not marketing that because that would turn off a lot of people. Like RPG, I don't want to play some because when people think about RPG, they think about turn based or they think about World of Warcraft.
Hmm.
That's the two things
Yeah.
they go towards. I don't want to play no
Yes.
turn based,
Yeah,
sports
but like
game.
football, I've heard somebody argue before that the Madden is literally like a turn-based strategy
Oh my
RPG.
god, you're
And
right.
it kind of is. You know, like there's a clock, you know, but it like it kind of is, you know, when you really like sit down and think about the mechanics of the game, you know? Because your characters have different stats and they're going up against your opponent's characters who have different stats and they're effective against each other depending on those stats and how they line up against each other and what play you call and all that stuff. And it's like you take turns though, you know? Like you're when you have the ball on offense, it's your turn, you
Oh
know?
my god,
And then when your opponent has the ball on offense, it's their turn, you
it's a
know?
strategy RPG.
Yeah.
Fire Emblem,
Yeah.
fire.
So I don't want to give you AI ideas here, but like I do actually think Madden is more of an RPG than some of these other games we're talking about because like it has a lot of the criteria that I consider when I'm thinking of an RPG. You know,
Yeah,
like no one's gonna sit here and tell me that fucking Pillars of Eternity is not an RPG. It's a fucking RPG. Like we all know that that's an
yeah.
RPG. You know, like because it has deep statistical customization, character ability, like you choosing character abilities. There's deep equipment stuff, equipment that you can choose for your characters and customize and stuff like that. And there's classes and things like that that your characters have. So these layers make it more of an RPG. You know, like they get closer to the reality of that D&D that I was talking about. That's the thing. Is the further away you get from that, Horizon is as far removed from D&D as you can get, you know, to like call it an RPG. It has none of that in it, you know. So it's like, yeah, your character levels up, whoopity fucking doodah. Like, what does that mean? Like, who cares? Like, it was one of the most, it was the funniest things. I was so self aware of this game when I was playing it, when I was playing Horizon, bro. Like, when you level up, Aloy gains 10 HP, and that's all you get, and you get a skill point too. And it's like, okay, is this an RPG? Like, is this what we think RPGs are now? It's like, oh, you leveled up. You killed enough enemies to level up. You get 10 health and a skill point. Congratulations. You're beating the RPG. It's like,
Well, yeah, that's what a
like,
lot of
come
people think.
on.
A lot of people think that.
Fuck, man. No, it's just not, it's not where it's at for me. I don't know.
I think, yeah, I don't know, man. I think that's what people think. Like, that, you know what?
Yeah.
That's how I felt about Destiny 1.
Yeah.
Base
Yeah.
Destiny. I felt
Yeah.
like calling that game, and that's why they even Bungie was like, don't call it an RPG. Um,
Yeah.
because it borrowed RPG mechanics, but it was still a shooter at its core.
Hmm.
Um, but what Destiny should have did, I think they should have just went full blown RPG. I think they should have done it.
Yeah.
But they still haven't really done it, unfortunately. But that's one of the games that's a prime example of that blending. That's like, what do you call it? Some people call it an RPG, some people don't.
Well, that's why we made up a genre, looter shooter.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
created a new one for them because they don't fit neatly into that RPG box. You know, it has aspects of what I would consider an RPG, but it's not all the way there. You know, it's not developed enough and deep enough really to be that. And I know people would ask us like, what is the line? Where do you draw the line? You know, and I can't think of a game off the top of my head that's like the good like this is the line. If you have less mechanics than this game, you're not an RPG. And you know, if you have more, you're definitely an I can't think of that game, you
I
know.
would say Dark
But
Souls or Demon Souls. I think that's the borderline,
yeah.
borderline-ish you can go. Or maybe if you want to push it, Kingdom Hearts. I consider that an action game.
That's where I would I that's actually a good one to draw the line at because Kingdom Hearts is as basic of an RPG as you can get and still call yourself an RPG,
Yeah.
you know, because there's barely anything you do with your character. That is the ultimate Horizon game where it's like, whoopee, you leveled up, you gained a strength point, you know, like I just think about the levels in that game and how silly they are because it's like I remember in the first game, it was always so weird to me where you'd level up and Sora would gain like you gain strength and a defense point, you know, and then the next level you gain is like you gained HP, you know, and then the next level you gain is like you gained magic. And it was like it wasn't like there was no rhyme or reason to why you gain whatever stats you gain, even though I know it's determined by what fucking role you pick at the beginning of the game, but and the levels are like set or whatever.
See,
But
guys,
like that
that's an
game,
RPG. I picked the role.
all that game has that makes it an RPG, even close to an RPG, is abilities that you customize and equipment. And the equipment is literally three things: your weapon, no, four things: your weapon, two accessories, and an armor. That's it. That's all you have for equipment. So I don't know if I consider Kingdom Hearts an RPG. I really don't. Like, if you want to get down to brass tacks with it, like it's a little better than Horizon in that regard, but it's
You
not
can't.
much.
You can't.
You know,
I would say it's more RPG than Horizon.
it definitely
Uh,
is. Yeah,
Even if
that's
you
I
do a
agree.
level
Yeah.
one run, you still need certain equipment to do what you want to do, right?
And your statistics matter in that game for sure.
Yeah,
The scaling in Horizon is not nearly as hard, from what I
yeah.
remember.
So I mean,
Um,
I guess I do take what I said earlier back about it being a pure action game, because I mean, well, in Kingdom Hearts 3, fuck,
mhm.
that's a thing. Like Kingdom Hearts 1 is so different from Kingdom Hearts 3. It's crazy. Because that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
Kingdom Hearts 1, that was like a pure action RPG game. Like
yeah,
Kingdom
yeah,
Hearts 3 went way more towards action.
yeah,
So I don't, okay, I'll say that. Kingdom Hearts 1 is like the drop off point from when that's where you're diving into like fucking, like, I even say Kingdom Hearts 2 to the extent, because Kingdom Hearts 3 is
mhm,
like, to me, it's just pure action. And I can make the same argument for Kingdom Hearts 2. So know what? I'm just gonna go with Kingdom Hearts 1. Kingdom Hearts 1 is like pure RPG, action RPG. That's where the cutoff point is at. Like in my eyes. And if you go past
mhm,
that, then you're an action game with RPG
yeah,
elements. So like Kingdom Hearts 2
mhm,
and 3 and Birth by Sleep and all the other Kingdom Hearts are action games with RPG elements. I don't really consider
yeah,
those RPGs. I would call them an
mhm.
action RPG just to be like, whatever, but like not really though. Like because Tails, your equipment matters in Tails. Uh
Well, that this is a good place to segue into that conversation. So JRPGs, right?
yeah.
They are. We all know what they are, and we know what they are when we see them. You know,
But what are they?
and Final Fantasy, right? Think of the early Final Fantasy games, right? The ones without job systems. And I'm even going to include Final Fantasy VII in this mix. And I might get a little controversial here. That game, Final Fantasy VII, in the early Final Fantasies, the ones where you didn't have jobs and stuff, they're on the cusp
Really?
for me. Yeah, because think about the game, right? Think about Final Fantasy VII, right? And Final Fantasy, this is true of most Final Fantasy games too. You're leveling up until 10. For the most part, your leveling was like a canned thing. It was like Horizon, where you like, oh, you leveled up, you gained 20 HP and 3 strength and 4 agility. You know, it was like that. You didn't have any choice in the matter. It was just like you leveled up and you gained stats. You know, and that definitely makes it more of an RPG. Like Horizon's like barely even trying. It's like you get 10 HP, you know? Oh, okay. Thanks. You know, it's like not really even doing anything for you. It's like it's not a useful thing leveling up in that game. Whereas in Final Fantasy, leveling up is essential to beating the game. You know, you have to level your characters. You can't do a level 1 playthrough of Final Fantasy 7, you know? Like maybe somebody's done it. I don't fucking know, but they're psychos if they have. You know, but it's like there's like not the only customization that game has is equipment and materia. You know, There's no like stat customization or really skill customization even beyond the materia. The materia is the skill customization, I guess I should say. So but the earlier Final Fantasy games, this is even worse in, is because they didn't have like skill customization really. It was really just equipment and then your party makeup. And that was it, you know?
I,
Like they had the characters had abilities that they had, you know?
yeah, and I
Um
can I would say I think Japanese RPGs, the reason why they are called JRPGs because they follow under a different criteria.
they do have a different
And I
criteria.
think
Yep.
from what you're describing to me, I'm envisioning like a Japanese RPG. That
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
itself is a Japanese
Yep.
RPG. Even when an American
Yes.
style game tries to emulate that, I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, they're doing like for instance that League of Legends game, that's a JRPG
Yeah.
to me. Like even though it's being made
Mhm.
by a Western developer, that game,
Yeah.
you have a party, you got equipment you got to put on them. It's turn based,
Mhm.
or the turn based doesn't matter. Just the way the game plays and the systems is going to be having. To me, that's a JRPG, but it's just made by a Western developer, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, more commonly in JRPGs, statistical acquisition in those games is automatic, right? You level up and you gain a certain amount of stats. Like you
Yeah,
have no choice in what those stats are. Western RPGs are designed differently, where generally when you level up, your statistics are manipulative. You're able to manipulate them, you
exactly.
know,
Yeah.
when you level up. So that is a difference in design philosophy. So I guess in that regard, you know, JRPGs are just as legitimate RPGs. You know, I'm not saying I never said they
No,
weren't,
yeah, I know
but
what you're saying. Yeah.
um, you know what I mean. It's just a difference of styling, I guess, and what you're able to customize. You know, because Tails is the one I think that's a good one to call out though, because some of the Tails games are, you know, they have like damage numbers and stuff, but I'm thinking of like Symphonia, you know, where it's like the game's like you don't really beyond equipment there's not, and like you have like a loadout your character can use like that you set with like your abilities that you want to use and stuff, but like there's not a whole lot of customization in that game, you know. You just kind of level up you know, and you get more powerful. And that is like that's like a lazy RPG, you know, in that case, even though I still consider it one. You know, it's kind of lazy, and maybe that means Horizon's just a lazy RPG. You said that earlier, you know, maybe Horizon is just a lazy RPG, but I don't like that as much. You know, Tails I put up with it more, I think, because there is still like equipment and stuff that's actually like really important to your character and stuff. And there are other avenues in some of the Tails games to gain power, you know, with your party. So um, yeah, I don't know, man. It's an interesting conversation. It's deep. I think this would be a very funny topic to throw out there onto Twitter and see what happens. It would be fucking chaos, you know. I think people would be throwing games out there that neither of us would even think about being an RPG, and we would just be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
I
You
might
know?
do that tomorrow. Because I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I think I did have that topic. Oh, it was actually we were discussing, but this was like I guess a totally different thing. And
Mhm.
I was actually at one point early on in my Twitter career. I was like 7 years ago. Wow.
Twitter career.
But
This fucking guy.
I actually was like a stand for Western RPGs. I'm like, oh, they're
Yeah.
vastly superior than JRPGs. And
I think you fell for the trap of the customization that they afford you,
yeah, I did.
you know? Yeah,
That's
because
true.
you have a lot of control. You have a lot of control in Western RPGs, but that's not necessarily a good thing. Too much control can bloat a game and bog it
Yeah.
down, you know, because you get lost in analysis paralysis where you're just thinking about choice, like what fuck, what do I want to do with these skill points, man? You know, it's like this is an issue Neo has. It's like there's too many choices in the fucking
Yeah,
game, you
yeah.
know, where I'm like, I'm sitting there for 20 goddamn minutes looking at my skill trees because I'm like, fuck, what do I want to do? You know, like so, you know, but I can see how people would feel that way because you feel more empowered as a player, you know?
Yeah, and I was
Um,
talking about how just better the stories were in my
mhm,
opinion at the time,
yeah.
at that particular time, because this
Yeah.
was like when like, this
Yep.
is
I'm
this is
with you.
like
There was a dark
yeah, this is
period.
like peak fucking Mass Effect and Dragon
Yeah.
Age, and other R.
JRPGs were bad in the
Oh
PS3
yeah,
era.
yep.
They were fucking bad. Most of them, dude. Oh man.
And yeah, the only good JRPG I played was Blue Dragon um
Oof. Oh god. Oh.
and fucking Tales of
Uh,
Vesperia on 360. So
yeah, that was
I was
good.
really just in that place where I'm just like, yo, I think right now,
Yeah.
and I maybe I should have specified it, but I was young and dumb, so I was just like, oh, fucking Western RPGs are blowing fucking JRPGs out the fucking water. Like, look at this
Mhm.
trash 13, even though I actually like 13 2. I like 13 too.
You fucker. No, you were totally trash in Final Fantasy
Yeah, I
13
was.
back in the
I
day. I
was.
know you
I
fucking
was.
were, you motherfucker.
Uh
I was defending that. I defended that game to the ends of the earth. And man,
no, I like
I
13
don't
too
know.
though. But I went back
Yeah.
and played 13 recently and it wasn't that bad. I was like 2 or 3 years ago I did that. But
Hmm.
uh I would say, oh, this is gonna be a super hot take.
Okay. Shoot, throw it at me.
Final Fantasy 15 is not an RPG. Boom. It's not.
I agree with you. I hate that game. You know that. We all know that. Everyone listening right now is rolling their fucking eyes. Here we go. They're gonna talk about Final Fantasy 15
We're not
again.
gonna talk about Final
However,
Fantasy 15, but
no, 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 hold on, hold on. Let's analyze though the take, okay? Because he's right, guys. Okay, that game has skill trees, okay, but they are bare bones as fuck and barely even worth mentioning. And there's very little customization that you do with your characters, okay? Very little at all. You have like no control. The characters just level up and they gain power. You throw your skill point in your skill tree every 5 hours that you grind enough, and God forbid, oh yeah, okay, you can afford the 500 HP node on Noctis's fucking skill tree. Oh yeah, what a great RPG this is. But you do that, and then you have equipment, and that's it. That's the game. That's it. That's
well,
the
in
extent
terms
of
of
it.
a JRPG, like we just defined, I
Yeah,
guess
I
it's
know. I
barely a
know.
JRPG.
It's barely.
It's
It's the laziest JRPG I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
it is.
And
And if you want to
yeah,
say that's where the cusp is, that is where the
yeah.
cusp is. Like that's barely a JRPG.
Hmm.
I think Kingdom Hearts is more of a
That's
JRPG.
our JRPG line.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think Kingdom
Yeah.
Hearts is more
Yeah.
of a JRPG than Final Fantasy
Yeah.
15.
I like this. I like this. I think this is going to turn into a running bit for us.
Yeah,
What's the R? Is it more of an RPG than Final Fantasy 15?
like and this is my second hot take. I think Final Fantasy
Okay.
16.
Yeah.
I am completely fine with them just abandoning RP. We're just abandoning.
I am too, man. Just making an
Yeah,
action game, guys. Go for it. Just I know you fucking all want to, like
just
shit,
don't even
man.
show me damage numbers. Just fucking
Yeah.
make it an action
No,
game.
the thing is, Montreal, you're not gonna get that. You're not gonna get that wish because the person making it is the director of Final Fantasy 14, which is
Okay,
an MMO RPG.
okay,
So he's gonna have RPG
okay,
mechanics. There's no
okay.
way. Nomura is the one who would get rid of the RPG mechanics, and to his credit, he didn't do that in Final Fantasy 7 remake. Like that game's a JRPG.
Yeah, through and through.
Um,
So like
through and through.
maybe it will
So,
have a hybrid of like 15 and 7 where
mhm,
it's like more
yeah,
action, but your equipment and stats do matter. Like maybe you get more
mhm,
cooldowns on certain attacks. So
yeah,
we
yeah,
don't know how
yeah,
the game plays. We just saw
yeah,
snippets of it, if that makes any sense.
yeah,
So
yeah.
um
Okay,
that is my hot take though. I think it's gonna be
yeah.
barely a fucking JRPG game.
Okay, okay. I disagree. I think it'll be a full-on JRPG,
Okay.
but we'll see. You really think they're gonna get rid of like fucking bangles and shit?
Yeah. I
Like
mean,
but that shit's iconic, bro. Like
bro,
like
okay. I just
they're gonna get rid
the
of
the
potions
way
and
they
Phoenix
portray
Downs.
that game,
No,
I just
no,
can't
no, they're
see that
not.
game being an
Yeah.
RPG. It looks like because they got
Mhm,
the battle director from Devil May Cry to do the old Devil May Cry to do
mhm.
that.
God, Final Fantasy 16 is gonna be so good, dude. I'm fucking so excited for that game. I am not even kidding. More I think about it, and you saying that, I'm like, man, this game is gonna hit, dude. It is gonna hit
Yeah,
fucking
it is. It
hard.
is.
Like,
I'm not even. I think. I don't know, man. I think the biggest mistake Final Fantasy 15 made was not just going pure action. Like, and then doing, you have a party, you can do your shit
yeah,
with them and everything like that. But like,
hmm
I think that was the biggest mistake. But J-
it was.
JRPGs and Western RPGs and things of that nature. Um, I think Dark Souls is one of those rare games that falls in between both of them. Like,
True.
uh, it
True.
has the
Yeah.
the uniqueness of in Neo, if you want to take that to the extent.
Yep.
It has the uniqueness of a JRPG, the
Yeah.
equipment and everything of that
Yeah.
nature, but has
Yep.
the customization of a Western RPG.
Exactly. I was just gonna say that it's the Japanese version of a Western
Yeah,
RPG. That's what those
yeah,
games
yeah,
are. That's their take on the Western RPG, and they did a phenomenal job. No joke.
yeah.
Um, Neo in particular is really excellent. Like it has great balance. The game is really balanced. Whereas with Dark Souls, it kind of falls off the fucking rails depending on what build you go. You can just fucking cheese everything in one shot the entire game. Neo is a little bit more balanced in that regard. Which is
It
but
takes
to be
hours to get a cheese build. Like I've seen cheese
yeah,
builds online, and people
yeah,
like, "Hey, I'm just fucking attacking and I'm healing," but the
yeah,
amount of
yeah.
grinding he had to do to get to that build is fucking crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure Neo has ridiculous builds too. I haven't gotten there, so I don't know. But. But okay, Montreal. So we're gonna definitively say this. So our line for JRPG, for what a JRPG is Final Fantasy
That's
15.
that's the line of what
That's the line. If you have less RPG mechanics than that game, you're
you're
not
not
an
RPG.
RPG. You're not a
No.
JRPG. If you have more, you're definitively are a
Yeah.
JRPG. Okay. So that's our game. It's Final Fantasy 15, and we're giving it that honor because that means it is an RPG. It's right there. It is the line. It's the final one, there. So for an RPG, our line is it Horizon? I'm
No.
nominating Horizon.
I think
Okay.
I'm sorry.
What do you think it is
Mass Effect
then? Is it
1.
Diablo
Mass
3?
Effect 1.
Mass Effect 1. Oh, no,
That
man.
if
No,
you
that's
if you want to
too.
be honest, that's barely an RPG.
It's a bad RPG. It's definitely an RPG. It's a bad one.
You can't you
It's
can't
definitely a
say
bad
because you
one.
love Mass Effect, but I went there. It's a bad RPG.
No, it is. I admit that. It's a bad RPG. It's horribly implemented. The game is completely unbalanced and broken. Like, it's a mess. And hopefully they fix that in the Legendary Edition. But it's an RPG, though. It
It,
is.
it, it is. I say
It's not a shooter.
it's
Like,
barely though, because like 2 and 3, I don't consider RPGs. Those are action
so
games.
what are we saying? We're saying Horizon isn't then? Horizon is not an
No, I
RPG.
don't think. I don't even know why people
Okay,
think that.
fuck it. I don't throw it in the trash, bro. I don't give a shit. Fuck that game. Like,
No,
all the kids out there can come scream at me. Oh, Horizon's definitely an RPG,
Horizon
you
is in the
fucker.
same
Like,
boat.
yeah, okay. Fuck you, man. Like, you get a fucking purple bow in like the second area you get in, and it's the best bow in the fucking game. Like, get off me. Shit.
I don't think Horizon is an RPG. I put that in the same vein
Okay.
with Mass Effect 2 and 3, and I love those games, so you can't say
Yes.
I'm being biased. Both of those
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
both of those games are action games with RPG
Hmm.
elements, but they're action games first. I
Yes.
can level
Yeah.
up Shepard. I don't have to put any points into Shepard. I can play Shepard with 49 points at the end of the game and still beat Mass Effect.
Hmm.
They even have a mode
Yeah.
where you don't have to do that shit. Like they do it.
Yeah, that's definitely true in Horizon. I can just fire arrow everything to death in that game. You know,
So,
my favorite tactic in Horizon.
yeah, so Sekiro, in my opinion, is not an RPG. That's
No,
across
not even
the board.
close.
And I would even go as far as to say, I know people want to disagree with me in this one, but Bloodborne is not an RPG. I don't think that's RPG.
Okay. I don't know. I haven't played it enough. I'm pretty sure that game had statistics
It
though, didn't it?
has like Demon Souls,
Okay.
but
I gotta play it. I really do need to play Bloodborne. I
we
do.
can play through that together too. That's two. That's
Okay.
you know.
That sounds fucking sick. Well, this has been an illuminating conversation. I'm glad we've definitively decided what what is and is not a JRPG and an RPG, a Western RPG. I'm glad we could scientifically decide what games make the cut, which ones don't. If you're still listening, please send us your games. What games do you want us to evaluate? We will put them on the scales of RPGdom, and we will decide here. We will put it up to Final Fantasy 15 and Mass Effect 1. Are they an RPG? Are they not an
And
RPG?
here's
And we will
here's
decide.
a super hot take. NBA
Yeah.
2K and Madden are more RPGs than Mass Effect 1 and Horizon. Those are
Yeah, I
actually
agree.
RPG games. They just don't wanna call
I
them
agree.
that.
No, they don't because they're sports games. They don't want to make it sound nerdy at all, but they know what they're doing over there at those studios. Montreal, one last
Yeah.
question. Diablo 3, we didn't
No,
decide.
that's not a I
Yes or
think that's
no?
a, I was gonna say a twin stick shooter, but not. I think that's an,
It kind of, actually, kind
yeah,
of.
I mean,
You aren't wrong. You ain't wrong, bro.
is
You ain't
do
wrong.
you call those isometric games, like,
They're twin stick shooters. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're thinking of like Alien Nation or Dead
yeah,
Nation.
like Alienation,
Uh,
Gauntlet, and things of those natures.
yes,
Like, I think Gauntlet's like a beat 'em
yes.
up, but it's also isometric game where you can throw axes.
We would call it a twin stick shooter, basically, is kind of what it
Okay.
is. And Diablo is the same thing. It's twin stick. You're that is what it is. You're controlling your orientation with one stick, and you're controlling movement with the other. That's what a twin stick shooter is. So that's what Diablo basically is. Now, those games can be
No,
RPGs.
no,
I'm not
I
saying they
think I
can't,
think
but
1 and 2 are definitely RPGs. I don't think 3
absolutely,
is, 'cause the
yeah,
more you
I
talk
agree.
about it and I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, the that isn't it's pretty
Right.
much Destiny.
Right. It is. That's exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is. Dude, Diablo 3, I'm going to say this because it came out in 2012, which is before Destiny, before all these looter shooters. That was the game that changed things.
Mm,
Okay. That game is more influential than people think. Like, it was a disaster, but when they got it right finally with Reaper of Souls, and even before that, when they were fixing the original game, they influenced the genre with what they did there because they simplified the RPG and made it not an RPG, but they still called it an
mm.
RPG. So they got to be like, oh, our RPG is so fun, like, oh, you can make your character and your numbers get bigger, and it's like it's like they tricked everybody though, you know. So at least that's my opinion on it. I think Diablo 3, it's an okay game, but it's not a good Diablo game, I guess, is kind of my feeling on it. But that's not the point of the conversation, though. Not an RPG. We've decided that here. So again, send us your games. What game? Put it up to us. What game do you think we should evaluate, whether it's an RPG or not? And don't send us something fucking obvious like Baldur's Gate. Yes, that's an RPG. I don't need you don't need to hear me say it, okay?
It's so
It's
bad.
fucking RPG.
So this
Use your common sense, people, okay? Please send us something borderline, that we could actually like really discuss and dissect. Yes, Montrell, I'm angry, okay?
yeah, that was funny. Uh,
I'm very, very angry person.
um, I mean,
We're getting loopy.
I don't know. Would you consider Genshin Impact an RPG?
Uh, that damn, bro, that's a good one. That is a good one. That's a good one to ask. Um,
I would say yes.
I'm gonna say no
Really? That's interesting. I say yes.
because the way the game works, it is it is almost its own form of RPG. If we're gonna consider it an RPG, it's its own form of it because it's a mobile RPG. It's the way mobile games do RPGs, and man, there's very little customization in that game. The characters kind of are who they are, and you can do the only customization you get is kind of what artifacts you put
You
on
know
them,
what? That's not a
you know?
fair analogy. That's not fair because they do have
Yeah.
their own genre and they're called gotcha games. That's their genre.
Yeah.
Okay,
They're not really
so that's
RPGs.
unfair. I wouldn't say that then.
Yeah. Like, is Fire Emblem Heroes an RPG? No. Not really. It has leveling and you can customize skills, but I wouldn't really call it an RPG. It's a gotcha game. That's what gotcha games do. Gotcha games, actually, it's really funny. Gotcha games are an offshoot of RPGs. Like, they all have those mechanics in them. Every single gotcha you play has leveling and all that shit because it's so easy to monetize. But that's the funny part. Is like they're not really RPGs. They're just deep enough where it engages you, but they're not really RPGs. You don't have enough freedom for them to be RPGs to me. So they don't make the cut. They're their own thing. they're kind of their own thing. So all right, Montrell, you have any other thoughts? What's an
Ooh,
RPG? What's
okay.
not? Any other
Good one.
games you can think of before we go?
One more. I'm sorry because I'm really on a
Okay.
tangent.
I mean, I'm having fun here, so
More.
you
Okay.
know,
It's Breath of the Wild RPG.
no, definitively no, absolutely not.
So the Witcher, that's an
Uh,
RPG. Okay.
yes. Well,
I would say yes.
that's debatable.
I think that's
I think yes, but it's debatable. It's in the lazy realm.
it's
It's
an
definitely
amazing.
in the lazy realm.
This is a super
Yeah.
hot take.
Yeah.
Even though I don't like the game, I think Cyberpunk
Hmm.
is more of an RPG than Mass Effect. I play the game and it's more statistics
Okay.
stats. I want you to play
Yeah, and there's like giant skill trees and
it.
shit too,
Yeah.
isn't there? Yeah.
I want you to play
So
it whenever you find a time. And tell me what you think about it. But that's it. That's all I have.
they need to get their shit together. It's gonna be a while. They delayed their patch for a fucking month because they got hacked. So they're not in a good spot right now. We don't need to talk about them. Yeah, no, Witcher 3. Yeah, it's on the cusp. To me, because I mean it has skill trees, but again, I said that skill trees don't make you an RPG. Um, it's there's equipment and stuff too. It's man. More I'm talking about it, it's more sounding like Horizon, bro. I don't know.
Oh,
God damn it.
that's a now if you
Oh,
say that.
yikes. Okay, but to be fair, Witcher 3's story and world building and open world are fucking miles ahead of Horizon. So, I mean, it's got that going for it. But as an RPG, it's pretty lacking, actually, if you really think about it. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, guys, you can come to me. I'm going to be honest with you. Even if I fucking love the game and I love Witcher 3, I'm not going to stomp here. I'm not going to pretend that game's like a deep, super deep RPG, where you're like Neo, where you're like got like 15 fucking skill tree. No, it's not. Okay, it's definitely not. You can come. That's what you come to us for. Okay, me and Montrell are honest. That's what we give our honest opinions. We don't bullshit you.
Someone's say
Like,
something like this.
yeah.
This is gonna be it's gonna irritate the shit out of me.
Mhm.
Like, well, Monster Hunter doesn't have any fucking skill trees. And they didn't used to have damage.
Okay. That's a good one to call out too. I don't think it is an RPG.
I think it's
I never have.
I think it's an action RPG. It's on a loot,
I disagree.
but it's an action.
I disagree with you. What about it? What about it's an RPG, dude? Like you make gear, okay? Like
But
this
gears
like
matter. Like if you go with some
I understand. I understand what you're saying, but like you don't level up. There's no statistics that level up with you. The only thing you do is gear. That's it. That's the only thing that changes about your character ever.
okay.
It's a loot grinding game. That's what it is. You know, it's more like Diablo in that way. It just doesn't have the leveling system that Diablo has. You know, so
All right.
I don't think it's an RPG. I don't think it's an RPG. But I don't know. Maybe that's a point of contention for us. So
That's a good question. Is Monster Hunter RPG? That's crazy.
I don't think so.
You know what? It's not. And the reason why it's not because they actually literally made an RPG.
That's true. What was it, Monster Hunter Stories or whatever? Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know.
All right.
Okay, we could be here all day calling out games, but this is fun. I think this is fun. So if you guys want to send us games that you think are on the cusp, please do to the at the players take on Twitter or to the players take 01 at gmail.com, and we will debate it on the show. We will make it a segment. I like this. I want it to be a recurring segment for us. We need to come up with a name for it. The trial of the RPG or something like that. I don't fucking know. Like we'll make a thing out of it though. We will put it on the scales, the RPG scales, the scales of the RPG. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a good name here on the fly, and it's not working for me. But we'll come up with something. Send us your ideas for that too at the same time. But yeah, and we will evaluate it on the show. We'll go back and forth and we'll debate and figure it out. So because we're Montrell and I'm self-proclaiming this right now. We are RPG scientists.
I am not an RPG scientist. I am more so
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
a dibble dabbler.
A connoisseur.
Yeah, connoisseur. There
Yeah.
you go. That's a good one.
Yeah, an RPG connoisseur.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, Montrell. Well, this was fun. I really enjoyed this conversation. For those of you who stuck around, thank you. We appreciate it. I know this is 3 hours you've been listening to us go, but yeah, we'll be back next week, and we'll talk about whatever news we have. So, thanks for listening. Goodbye.